Are you going to... Good afternoon, everybody. We're going to get started, if we can, please. Good afternoon. Please join me in welcoming our webcast viewers. My name is Andrew Graham, President-elect of the Canadian Club of Toronto, and your host today. Viewers, thank you for joining us. We're proud of our club's track record for providing a forum for decision makers and thought leaders to share their viewpoints with us. The founder and former CEO of Wind Mobile has a lot to say about the Canadian economy, and we will hear from him shortly. Before I formally introduce him, let me tell you about some of our upcoming events. On Friday, October 13th, we'll have a panel of banking experts to discuss the future of the Canadian banking industry. And on Monday, the 16th of October, we'll have Ambassador Marc-André Blanchard, Canada's permanent representative to the United Nations, who will be with us at our podium. You can order tickets and learn more about the club at our website, canadianclub.org. And I would also invite you to join the conversation today on Twitter and Instagram by following us at CDNCLUBTO or by using the hashtag. And if you didn't get that when I said it, on your tables is a little card that gives you the hashtag to use. And now our guest speaker. Canada is well positioned as a strong, stable society. We enjoy solid economic growth thanks to our welcoming investment climate. If you think that we should rest comfortably on our laurels, however, you would be wrong. At least that is according to today's guest speaker. Anthony Lacavera is a self-described serial entrepreneur. The wildly successful technology executive is also an investor and best recognized for launching Wind Mobile. He sold Wind for more than $1 billion after it became Canada's fourth largest wireless provider. I can tell you that Anthony is someone that I personally look up to a great deal. He entered a protected oligopolistic sector in the Canadian economy and built a successful company. That's certainly something that I and others in the financial services world in Toronto are also eyeing. And if we can be even a little bit as successful as you've been, it would be a great outcome. He also has his finger on the pulse of what works, not only in today's business environment, but of the economy of the future. He's founder and chairman of a venture capital firm, Globalive Capital, and I know we have some folks here today from Globalive, and it's played a crucial role in supporting some of Canada's most successful accelerators and incubators, including Mars, the Creative Destruction Lab at the University of Toronto, the DMZ, and Next Canada. He has conducted business in more than 30 countries, from the US to Russia to Egypt. You can now add successful author to your long list of accomplishments, Anthony. His captivating new book, How We Can Win, outlines a way forward for Canada. We have a copy for everyone, which Anthony has kindly agreed to sign after our event. In this book, Anthony implores Canadian business to think big and act boldly in order to survive. And we are delighted that he is here to share his insights. Members and guests, don't forget, if you have a question, please fill out one of the Q&A cards on your table, and our staff will collect them. We'll do Q&A right afterwards, and I know it's just judging from the conversation we had at our own table, I'm sure it'll be an animated and really fun experience afterwards. Anthony, the Canadian Club of Toronto's podium is yours. Thank you.
Well, good afternoon, everyone. It's a real pleasure to be back at the Canadian Club after a number of years. I'd like to begin today with a story. It's a story that begins in the 1870s. Canada had just been born, and there was a worldwide race on to bring a revolutionary new technology to market. And two Canadians are in the lead. Their invention works better than anything that had come before it. There's a flurry of excitement, patents are secured, and investors come on board. But when it comes time to scale their invention and bring their product to market, to go big or go home, their investors go home. Our inventors can't convince anyone to take the risk. A few years later, along comes an American. He's a smart guy and he's got big money backers. He buys the Canadians' patents. He brings his financial backing to the table, launches his own version of the product. He reaps the financial rewards, and he receives all the credit for this world-changing innovation. The product is the light bulb. The American is Thomas Edison. No one remembers the other guys' names. Now, this happened 140 years ago. But in a sense, the same story is playing out all too often across our country today. We have a lot going for us as a country. We educate people well, we do groundbreaking research, we have good ideas, and we start promising companies. But in many cases, we still fail to scale up. Sometimes our companies move to the United States. Other times they end up relying so much on foreign investment that profits move offshore. As a country, we are open to the world. We have a good reputation, and we're active in the global market. But year after year after year, we seem satisfied at just receiving a participant's ribbon. We're not playing to win. And in the long run, that's really going to hurt us. It's going to hurt our economy, it's going to hurt our standard of living, could even hurt our way of life. Unless we take action now and do something about it. Unless we resolve to change our mindset and our habits. Unless we figure out how to take a leadership position in the world, and we play to win. My new book is being published today. It's called How We Can Win. It's about the possibilities that are within our grasp. And it's about the consequences, potential severe consequences, of falling behind in an increasingly competitive and rapidly changing world. And we do have a tremendous amount going for us as a country. We have a well-educated workforce, a fair and modern healthcare system, strong democratic institutions, a stable financial services industry, a progressive, welcoming attitude, and a diverse and pluralistic population. We are the envy of many, and we should never, ever overlook that. But when it comes to commerce, there aren't a lot of people out there in the world that hear the word Canada and think to themselves, tough as nails, killer instinct. They don't think to themselves, winner. They think to themselves, nice. I remember watching the London Olympics in 2012, and at one point, the folks on CTV went to great lengths to trumpet the fact that Canada had just achieved its best ever number of bronze medals. And somebody on Twitter remarked, that might be the most Canadian brag ever. We're number one at being number 3. But from a business perspective, it can really feel, though, as a country, we are often striving for bronze. Our prevailing corporate culture is traditional and insular. It's far too timid for a changing world that rewards the bold and the ambitious. Our approach to regulation is outmoded and counterproductive. It stifles growth instead of encouraging it. Our educational institutions do incredible research, and then they have a terrible record of commercializing and benefiting from it. I work now in a world in which I'm exposed each and every day to some of the best and brightest and most creative people that our country has to offer. I mean, these are people with drive, with energy, with the vision to not only understand how the world works today, but how it may work a decade from now. You'll find people like them at incubators all across our great country. These entrepreneurs are our new national resources. Canadian to the core, but focused on international possibilities. They want to stay here too. They want to build right here in Canada, but way too many of them wind up in the United States or elsewhere. 300,000 of them in Silicon Valley alone, creating jobs, wealth, and tax revenues for the United States. And these are the countries we're competing against, and we're sending our best and brightest to them, gift-wrapped. If we're going to win, that needs to change. Let's take a step back just for a minute and ask, where are we today as a nation? I mean, we're a trading country, and yet exports have declined to 30% of GDP from 46% in the year 2000. In a world defined by expanding trade relationships and trade agreements, fully 3/4 of our exports go to a single customer, the United States. And here's the bigger problem with that. We need them way, way more than they need us. And we discovered that the hard way with oil. We also tend to occupy a position that's somewhere down the value chain, focusing on extraction and light processing. And this leaves others to focus on higher value goods and services. And it robs us of any kind of pricing power in the marketplace. And as a result, we are just too often the junior partner in a trade relationship, the sous chef, if you will, who does all the prep work before the master chef comes in to whip up her masterpiece. And let me put it as gently as I can. I don't know anyone that goes to a restaurant because they heard good things about the sous chef. Most troubling of all, we lack the imperative of urgency. Now, let's think about the global race to develop and implement artificial intelligence and how the ensuing revolution is going to change the way we live and work. As Canadians, we've actually seen this future coming. And for decades, governments and academic institutions have been investing heavily in AI research. This has given us the opportunity to be among the world leaders across the AI landscape, with enormous potential economic benefits to our companies and to our country. But right now, we're taking a fragmented approach. We're all over the place, both thematically and geographically, when what we really need is a focused collaboration. Because just like with the light bulb, nothing is certain. And without resolve, leadership positions can be lost. And without follow-through, opportunities can and will be seized by others. So in my book, I asked this question: how can it be that a country with all of our research strength, our talent, our diversity, our openness, and yes, our niceness, isn't a sure thing to win in the knowledge economy? Why are our strengths not currently reflected in our biggest businesses? And of course, the most important questions of all: what can we do to ensure that our companies are ready and able to rise to the challenge? What can we do to ensure that we win? You find the long answer in my book. But for our purposes here today, I'm going to give you the speech equivalent of a clickbait. 10 important and achievable things that we can do as a country to go for gold. First, we need to double down on winners. Now, let's think of it as the business version of owning the podium. When a company successfully secures some minimum amount of venture capital investment, our government should match that with a non-dilutive loan to increase the ability of that company to scale more rapidly and get to market faster and export. A strong and promising company immediately becomes stronger. And by the way, the loan would come with one string attached. If you leave the country, you pay back the loan immediately. Second, we need to increase the amount of scale-up funding that's available for our entrepreneurs. I mean, that's the best way to stop them from leaving. And it's long past time to abandon the come one, come all funding that we've done via tax credits, all in some vague hope of encouraging innovation. We need a real game plan that's designed to produce real results, even if that plan means that some people are going to complain. Third, we need to start to see competition as an opportunity to grow and expand and innovate, not as an existential threat. It's really a curiosity of Canadian life that we are such enthusiastic adopters on social issues, ranging from minority rights to gay marriage, and yet our business culture remains largely risk-averse. We pride ourselves on embracing a spirit of adventure, and yet our business culture remains largely risk-averse. In the world today, with so many countries and companies vying for market share, not taking a risk can be the riskiest gambit of all. Fourth, we need to move up the value chain. Instead of just exporting crude, let's refine petroleum domestically. Instead of just manufacturing car parts and exporting them and assembling foreign vehicles, let's also build a Canadian car. Instead of watching our startups exit early, let's resolve and devote ourselves to bringing more to scale here at home. And let's build companies that can compete and thrive on the global stage. Fifth, we need governments to help. Help by changing procurement policies to buy aggressively from Canadian companies. Help by eliminating barriers to domestic competition. Help by encouraging more foreign competition in our major industries, which in turn will spur the existing dominant market players to pursue innovation with greater urgency. And help by reducing the regulatory burden for all companies, but especially for startups in emerging industries, where speed to market could really be a deciding factor. And to give you one example, we'll talk about fintech. Timely for our president-elect. Fintech holds the potential to both bolster our existing strengths in financial services and create new financial giants that can have the ability to compete and grow internationally. I mean, we should really be doing everything we can to nurture the emerging companies in this field. And yet our current climate is such that many of our early-stage fintechs have to pay lawyers just to figure out which regulators have jurisdiction over them. We're snuffing out the life of these companies. For many of these smaller players, the barriers to competition are too high. The cost of entering the marketplace is too severe, and the time it takes to enter the marketplace is too long. Sixth, we need to continue to support our leading incubators and accelerators, but we need to shift our priorities to focus our effort and better fund the companies that have the greatest potential. That's a gamble by its very nature, but that's a gamble that we really must take. That may offend our egalitarian mindset, but we can't continue to watch our most promising companies of tomorrow just drift across the border. Seventh, we need to better celebrate our successes. We live now in the shadow of the United States, a country that loudly and proudly, and some would say obnoxiously, celebrates its innovators, its entrepreneurs, it's wealthy and it's powerful. And that makes a lot of us here in Canada cringe, and so we don't do it. But that modesty really comes at a price. Too often in our country, we shine the spotlight on a company only when it's in trouble. I think about the decline of Nortel, or when RIM started laying people off. I read about this actually in the book, and we hear from the mayor of Waterloo at the time. She told us, and I quote, "I don't think you'd see that anywhere else in the world. The media attacking our only giant company, gleefully. If anyone gets too ambitious or too big, the knives come out." End of quote. Tall poppy syndrome. Eighth, and we need average Canadians to speak up and be catalysts for real change. We need to demand more and better of the businesses that serve us. I'll give you an example. Around the time that we founded Wind, there was also a wireless auction in the United States. More than 250,000 Americans wrote to their government officials to say, "We want more competition." In Canada at the time, cell phone rates were even higher. Competition was even more constrained. But do you know how many Canadians wrote to our government to say that they want more competition and lower prices? Exactly 4. I think 2 of them were my parents sitting here. Nobody. But 250,000 Americans did it. We all, as Canadians, have an obligation and an important role to play in making sure that our businesses are compelled to innovate and be globally competitive. Ninth, we need to be nimbler and quicker to adapt to technological change. And that's the big advantage of being small. You should be able to be fast and agile. Other countries succeed in this regard, Israel and the Scandinavian nations. But Canada is often slower than the US or China to implement policies and regulations that allow businesses to accelerate growth. We're never going to be a Goliath. So we've got to figure out how to be the best David we can possibly be. 10th and finally, we need to do a better job of retaining top talent. On one hand, this is a very complex challenge that's not easy to confront. But on the other hand, I think it's a problem that starts to solve itself the minute we begin keeping some of our best startups here in Canada. I mean, most of the talented Canadians that left didn't leave because they were down on Canada. But they left because they saw a bigger opportunity elsewhere. They left because they saw the chance to work to their full potential. I mean, there are so many great Canadian entrepreneurial stories out there. I wrote about a lot of them in the book. But these people have such a passion for what they do. And they have the skill, and they have the creativity, and they have the drive. Let's help them see a way to achieve their full potential right here at home. Let's keep them here in Canada. So those are the 10 solutions that I promised. But I actually have one more, a bonus solution. I'm going to warn you, though, I think this is the one that is the most difficult for us to achieve. As a country, we must urgently shake our colonial branch plant mindset. And if you think that that mindset's, if you doubt that it still exists, and just look at how our elected officials are responding to the possibility of luring Amazon to our country. The short-term appeal is clear. Good jobs for Canadians. But let's dig a little bit deeper. What are we really celebrating? We're celebrating the notion that a big American company comes into our country, identifies our best talent, pays them less than they would have to pay them in the United States, and then uses their skills to create more value for that American company. That sounds like a fantastic growth plan for America. For Canada, that sounds like more of the same. Second fiddle, the junior partner, the bronze medal. Here's what I'd like to see. I'd like to see our elected officials bring the same enthusiasm and excitement and urgency to supporting our homegrown businesses and entrepreneurs as they're bringing to all those Amazon pitches. Here's the bottom line as I see it. There was a time when going along to get along as a strategy, a business strategy, worked. There were trends were slow to evolve and emerge. Markets were consistent and largely predictable. Disruption happened infrequently. Trends were always slow. But this now is a different time. Today we're competing against the world. I mean, China alone has 30 cities bigger than the city of Toronto. And think about the pace of technological change. As Kevin Lynch has written, reaching 50 million consumers, the definition of a mature breakthrough technology or product, took the telephone 75 years, the radio 38 years, the television 13 years, and the internet 4 years. And then it took Angry Birds 35 days. Henry Woodward's and Matthew Evans. Henry Woodward and Matthew Evans. Those are the two Canadians that almost invented the light bulb. Their names are largely forgotten, but let's remember their example. And let's resolve to have the story end differently this time. Our economic success is not a birthright. Our way of life is not assured. It has to be earned. One of the people we spoke to for the book put it this way. He said that Canada is like a kid with great genetics, but that doesn't exercise. If we got up and worked to our full potential, we'd dominate. We need to get off the couch. We need to put our smarts and our creativity to work. In hockey, we are passionate and unapologetic about aggressively pursuing the gold. We need that same mentality to translate into our business culture. It's no longer enough to just be in the game. It's no longer enough to just strive for bronze. Now is the time to aim for the top of the podium. Now is the time for Canada to win. Thank you.
Thank you very much for very passionate and heartfelt remarks.
Thank you.
I think everyone in the audience, you should encourage your friends and family to buy copies of the book. I'm a bit scared to see what happens if it doesn't get to #1 on the bestseller list. It may be very tough for Anthony, so we can't let that happen. We've had a number of good questions come in, and if you have questions, by all means, please fill out the Q&A card and have them sent in. The only questions we won't take are softball questions from parents, so that is one rule we have, but anything else is welcome. We've had a few questions about diversity. So if part of the answer to doubling down is to sort of follow the winners that the private sector picks, and we know there's lots of research out there saying that women, minorities, other groups have a tougher time getting venture capital, wouldn't the government sort of be doubling down on a lack of diversity?
I think diversity's got to be, obviously, Andrew, a big, or whoever asked the question, a big focus, and I think it is a big focus. Being so closely connected to all the incubators and accelerators across the country as I am, I can tell you that all of them that I'm involved with, I'm on the board of 4 of them, are extremely focused on the issue of increasing diversity across the ecosystem. But that needs to be distinguished from the need to build global winners. And so what I would not be an advocate of is compromising the quality of our high growth firms in favor of hitting some statistic. And I don't think we need to do that, by the way, because I'm invested in a lot, we at Globalive, my partners at Globalive here, we're invested in a lot of astonishingly amazing female entrepreneurs. And they're, in many circumstances, outperforming the male founders. And in terms of diversity from an ethnicity perspective, that just comes naturally because our country is already so diverse. So I think that it's a problem we need to pay attention to. I don't think it's a problem that we need to overweight focus on.
Great. We've had a number of questions about the federal government, which we currently have a federal government that certainly is very focused on innovation and the innovation economy.
We think.
Well, we'll let you address that. The questions concern how is the current strategy, the current focus going, both in terms of superclusters, in terms of overall sort of approach to innovation, and then finally maybe you can comment a little bit on tax policy and some of the changes we've seen to small business taxation.
Yeah, so I think our approach to innovation is horrifically bad. I think our government's approach and execution is terrible. And the reason I think that is because we're taking the classically Canadian approach to it. We're spreading out relatively limited resources across hundreds of companies in the form of shred credits, for example, where we throw $3+ billion a year into it. I don't know what we get for that. We spread out like Canadian style, peanut butter style, make sure everybody gets a little bit. We spread it out, and then nobody emerges a clear winner. In terms of the tax policy, that's obviously a really hotbed question right now that a lot of people are very upset about. My point on the tax is very simple. I think that we need to stop having the debate domestically about what fairness is and what is fair between liberals and conservatives. And we need to just start to understand that we're in a global economy. And no one else in the world cares what our tax regime is like domestically. People aren't going to locate their business here if we're not competitive. So we're not setting global prices or structures for taxes. We need to follow and be globally competitive. We need to wake up and recognize that.
So, is our current tax regime
we're in great shape right
or?
now. Well, we're in great shape right now. I mean, obviously, the U.S. government is moving to significantly, potentially curb our current lead. But right now, as things sit today, Canada is a very attractive place to start a business. Canada is competitive globally from a taxation perspective. I'm not a tax expert, but I have enough exposure to it through the different businesses that I'm invested in to know that we're in good shape. We're about to potentially compromise that in a material way. And I can tell you, folks, that entrepreneurs in the fourth industrial revolution, entrepreneurs that are building artificial intelligence-enabled companies, they don't think about borders. They think about, where do I get the best place to start my business with the best talent, the best access to customers, and where do I get the most capital? And they don't care whether it's in Brazil or it's in Shanghai or it's in London or it's in Toronto. That's what I see.
Maybe you can talk a bit more about AI. That was something we were discussing at lunch, and certainly there's a lot that Canada has to be proud of, but I think you have some concerns about how we're doing in AI. Maybe you can talk more about that.
It's very similar. I mean, I think our approach in AI is the same as our approach with funding via tax credits, so many small companies. We're spreading out that money that our government set aside for AI across a whole lot of initiatives. And it's pretty clear at this point that the countries that are winning in the innovation race in the fourth industrial revolution that's coming is Israel and the Scandinavian countries. These places focus. And that's what I was meant by focused collaboration. We need to pick where we can globally lead, and we need to lean in so hard on those places where we can globally lead and solidify a #1 position in 3 or 4 or 5 sectors. I think financial services is potentially one. I mean, that's why I used that example. I think in fintech, we've got ourselves in a great place here with an incredibly stable financial services industry that was something that the world was aspiring to in 2008 and 2009. Why can't we now just take that leap to take advantage of all the great talent we have in financial services and have firms like yours and other fintech firms scale to global prominence, ultimately global dominance?
Great. We have time for a couple of questions here. This one is, why not open a Silicon Valley here? And maybe just to expand on that a little bit, you've been very vocal in your concerns about Amazon opening a second headquarters in Canada, or at least in Toronto. Isn't having Amazon here a way to do that, to sort of create a second Silicon Valley?
So first, I don't think we should be trying to create a second Silicon Valley. I think Toronto is Toronto. Toronto's got great strengths on its own. We don't need to pretend that we're like Silicon Valley or New York or London. We're not. We're better in a lot of ways, and we're not as good in a lot of ways. I don't think we should use anything as a benchmark in that regard. I do think that the idea of rolling out the red carpet, if you will, for large US technology companies is a very, very, very bad long-term strategy for our country. The short-term impact is positive. The short-term headline jobs numbers and short-term economic gains in the GTA, in this example, if it were Amazon, the GTA, or whatever Canadian city, those are, it's pretty clear, and I would never debate those. I think it's a pretty clear short-term benefit. But the long-term, what you see is a picture that looks very much like the automotive sector in Southern Ontario today, where we have Ford Canada, GM Canada, Chrysler Canada, Honda, Mitsubishi, Toyota, and we're not making a Canadian car. And now with the current US administration saying, we're going to repatriate automotive jobs, suddenly we're panicked in the Southern Ontario manufacturing sector. And what we're going to do is perpetuate that branch plant economy in automotive by throwing tax dollars at GM, Ford, and Chrysler to make sure they do keep the jobs here, because we can't afford to lose those jobs. But if we were creating a Canadian car and exporting it and selling it into China and selling it into the US, we'd be creating tens of thousands of jobs, hopefully, that would be secure here. That's what I'm saying we need to start doing.
Great. Maybe we'll do one more question, one last question on really on talent. What do you think are the ways that we can excel as a country and perhaps as a city when it comes to talent attraction, and especially vis-a-vis the U.S.? How do we make that case?
I totally understand the question. Sorry.
Sure. So really thinking about talent and how retaining and attracting top talent is key for the success of an innovation economy. What are, first of all, some of the strengths that you think Canada and Toronto has now? And then second of all, in addition to what you've outlined today, is there anything else we need to do from a talent perspective?
Yeah, look, I think I outlined a lot of that in that short talk there. Is that we have an amazingly positive reputation globally. We are known as being tolerant, open, accepting, kind, generous. There's just so much goodwill towards Canada out there in the world. We don't really capitalize on it anywhere near the same extent as I think we should be. So I think that we need to trumpet our strengths, and that's what's going to bring talent from all around the world. I chair something called Next Canada, co-chair something called Next Canada. We have a program called Next AI, and I was so proud that our first cohort had over 200 people passed basic eligibility from 22 countries. We accepted 75 people from 9 countries. We had someone from Iran, someone from China, someone from Israel. This is a great place to come. People want to come here. People really want to start and build their business here. And then once they do, we've got to figure out a way to keep them. That's where I'm focusing all of my energy is. The way we're going to win is we got to get into scaling companies to global scale and prominence and ultimately ownership of a sector or category. And what we're doing by wooing Amazon and Microsoft and Google and Facebook and having our elected officials run around, we're celebrating Jeffrey Hinton being hired by Google to be the head of Google AI. Folks, everyone in this room funded that guy's research for the better part of 20 years. And now all the economic value that he's going to create in the next 20 years is going to accrue to Google shareholders. And where are Google shareholders based? They're not based here. I don't know what percentage of Google is owned by Canadians, but maybe it's 1% or something. So we lose. We should not be celebrating that. We should be freaking out. Say, why are we how are we in a place where our top talent thinks that Google's the best place to go instead of, I don't know, Shopify or Hootsuite or Hubba or go down the list of emerging Canadian technology companies?
Great, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Well, I don't know about you, but I certainly really enjoyed Anthony's remarks. I think Anthony's really a unique person in the Canadian ecosystem. He's someone that's very well known on Bay Street for everything he accomplished with wind and the very public successes and challenges that he faced in that industry. But he's also very well known and very well respected in the technology and emerging company ecosystem. As someone who's in that ecosystem now, I can tell you that he's very highly regarded, and I think you can see why. Not only has he always been a thought leader, and I think this book solidifies that position, but he's someone who really puts his money and his time where his mouth is by supporting entrepreneurs and by supporting organizations like the accelerators and other places where entrepreneurs are getting support and ultimately growing and coming from in this country. So it's really no surprise that there's so many people in the audience today that I see from the startup community as well. It's great to see the different worlds coming together. You really are a great example of what can happen when big dreams and a can-do attitude come together for good. Before I conclude, I want to thank MediaEvents.ca, which is Canada's online event space, and VVC for live streaming today's event. To learn more about the club, please visit us at canadianclub.org. Thank you for joining us. Please return to the club again soon, and let's have a final round of applause for Anthony. Thank you.